Welcome back to Average Joe Real Estate Investing. Today we're going to talk about how I got my first initial seed money for my first 4 rentals. So 2 duplexes I own by myself, and then an 8-plex and a 4-plex I bought with my partner. And so from 2012 to 2018, I lived with roommates. I didn't own the house, so it's not, I suppose, true house hacking, but I would always be the one that got the lease, and then I would have my friends move in with me, and then that way you're essentially house hacking, right? You're living cheap, you're saving up money, or you should be saving up money, but it just reduces the bills. And so I was done with my money. I did not save any of it. I made at that point anywhere from 45 to 55,000 a year, and I spent it all even though we were living extraordinarily cheap. And so some things I'd spend it on, drinking on the weekends, fast food, vacations. Those are probably the 3 biggest ones that I would just blow money on, like an idiot. And then I also had a bunch of loans. And so I had a ATV loan, a truck loan, a car loan, a camper loan, and no credit card debt, luckily. I've always been smart about those. But I was dumb and I had 4 loans. And you start adding those up, some of them are 200, 250, 300. You start adding all that up, it gets to be a lot a month. And then you throw going to the bar on top of it, eating out at Culver's every day, or McDonald's, whatever. And then you go on vacation twice a year. Well, there's all your free money that you could have saved up for an investment property. So you come around to 2019, and I decided to start looking into better ways to manage my money, and I came across Dave Ramsey. And most investors disagree with everything he says. And on the real estate investing side of it, he doesn't make a ton of sense in my opinion. Buy real estate in cash, and who can do that? Who can go buy an 8-plex in cash if you're an average Joe? But all of his ideas on debt, I think, are right on point. So it's pretty much get yourself out of debt by either selling stuff, working a bunch of extra hours, doing side hustles, and then save up an emergency fund and fully invest your 401k. All things that I do and I agree with. So come around to 2019, I start following him, watching his videos, and I sell my ATV, I sell my 4-wheeler, I sold my hunting shack, just everything I could, I sold, and then I paid off my car and my truck. At that point, I just had an old crappy truck, just if I needed to move stuff around. I think it was worth probably $2,000 at the time. And then I had my car for going back and forth to work and just your normal stuff if you do go on vacation, so it was pretty reliable. It was a 2010 Impala, but it was probably worth, I don't know, $6-7 at that time. So together I had $8-9 worth of vehicles that were now paid off. So nothing big, not like it was a huge truck payment or anything like that. So at that point, I didn't have vehicle payments. We weren't going to the bars. We weren't going out to eat. We weren't going on vacations. And so at that point, I could start stacking cash finally. All that money that was getting pissed away is now just going into your savings account. 2019, real estate's skyrocketing. Probably at that point, everyone thought was going to be the worst time to buy. And I was like, screw it. I think it's still going to just keep going up for a while. I don't think we'll ever see these prices again. And so I rolled the dice and I went for it. So I started telling everyone what I was looking for. Every coworker, friend, family member, Facebook, Snapchat, just, hey, looking for a house in this area, this amount. If anyone has one that you know of, I'll buy it from them. No realtor fees included. And it's just going to be a win-win all around. Because at that time, there's bidding wars. Houses would stay on the market for 4 hours, for a first-time home buyer, FHA loan, 3.5% down, all the contingencies in the world. You're not going to win anything, any bidding war with that. So anywho, started telling everyone, wasn't having any luck on the MLS. And then just one day, talking to my plant manager in the parking lot of my job, and I'm a fairly loud talker, as everyone knows, and a coworker overheard me. And he comes over and he says, hey, I was just at at a thrift sale, and it's an old couple, just pack rats. I mean, stuff from top to bottom. They had a 2-story garage, 2-story house. It's actually in the background there. And they want to sell it, but they're worried that if they sell it with like a realtor, they're gonna have a closing date and they won't be able to hit it for moving out just because they have so much stuff and no one to help them move. I think they had one kid around at that time that was able to help them, but he was a contractor and very busy. So anyways, I was like, oh man, I can help with all that. So I'll go out there and just see how much they want for it and go from there. And so I get out there, and I think they wanted $265 or so if they listed it with a realtor. Maybe it was $250, but either way, they wanted between $250 and $265. Listed with a realtor, you're going to pay 6% fees. So that's kind of the pitch I was going for. And so I walked the property, built in 2003, lake property, just a beautiful view. So I'm like, I want this. And so I talked to them, get to know them a little bit, and yeah, they want to sell it. They don't want to pay realtor fees. And if they need an extra couple weeks after closing to get stuff out, that's what they want in the contract. And I was like, hell yeah, I'll do all that. And so luckily my father-in-law for a long time was a realtor. And so we pulled up a WB11 on my computer, and obviously he's not going to fill it out for me, but he explained each section, what it meant. And so I brought that out there. I went and negotiated with them, and we got it under contract for $225, so $225,000. They pay closing, and I gave them, I think it was 2.5 months. It was whatever the bank allowed us to extend our rate lock out to. And so it was everything they wanted. And then I just put a side note saying they could leave their stuff in the bottom garage for 2 weeks after if they needed, and continue to move it out after we close. And so I hit everything they wanted except the price. But the way we got that down is they met my wife, and then they met me, and it was like a younger version of themselves, and they just felt comfortable, and they were willing to make a deal. So kind of get into it a little bit. We did the inspections, found a well in the basement, which is a no-no. Very odd that they were able to do that in 2003. But either way, so I told them they would have to replace that and put one outside. And so that was $8,000 that they paid. And there's just a bunch of little stuff wrong with the property. And so we talked about it, and they just ended up covering closing costs instead of fixing that type of thing. And so they were willing to negotiate a little bit just because of the terms that we offered, which were not a big deal whatsoever in my eyes. I mean, who cares if someone has stuff in your garage for 2 weeks if you can save, even $20,000 or $10,000. So we move in. They left their stuff there for, it was only a couple days in the garage. And then me and Kaylin just went right to work. We started painting all the walls. There's a little leak in the basement that I started to fix. A bunch of dead trees everywhere. The landscaping was terrible. And so just a bunch of small items that we did. And we hired a crew to come in and take these massive pine trees that were next to the house. They were dead along the shoreline, but they were massive. And so they brought a crane in and cleared out every single dead tree on the property. And throughout the 2 years that we lived there, we just slowly added stuff to the property that I thought people would want, like this steps going down to the dock. They have a hinge on the end, and then the dock would just come up every winter with a winch. And so easy things like that I think I could have marketed towards older people living there. Just make it simple for them to get down to the dock and for them to do the maintenance throughout the winter, right? Like they don't want to cut down dead trees. They don't want to go in the water like I had to do the first year and pull the dock out. That's not fun. So for the next 2 years, me and Caitlin just spent the entire time making the place look better, updating the landscaping, getting rid of dead trees, and just simply making the maintenance easier to do, I guess, each year. That way it would go towards just a vacation rental or a old, retired people that want to move in there. So then come around to 2021, we started to talk about listing it in May. And that'd be 3 months before we could actually sell it, just because we don't want to pay taxes. So we wanted to wait the full 2 years that you have to live in a primary residence, and then you don't have to pay taxes on your gains. And so one of our friends, his friend, so a friend of a friend, wanted to buy a lake house. And so I got in talks with him, and he told us an offer, and it was very, very fair for the market. And so we put it under contract with him. So for sale by owner, no realtor fees again. I didn't pay any closing costs. All the maintenance is already done, so there wasn't anything else to do at this point. And so he put it under contract. We closed 3 days after my 2 years was there. There was no negotiating that. I needed to make sure I was past that, and he was fine with that. And then we closed on it. And so essentially I had $225 into it for a purchase price. I put about another 10 into it just with the materials for everything, like painting and drywall and all that stuff, light fixtures. And then for the crane to come in, remove those trees. Obviously, it was a large part of that. And so basically at this point, bought it for $225, 10 into it. And then we sold it for $330, didn't pay any of the fees. And so with the mortgage pay down and all that throughout the 2 years that I was there and what I put down on it, I walked away with $115,000 tax-free in a check. And so that's how we started. We just simply lived on the lake and enjoyed 2 years of our life. And so it doesn't have to be crazy hard. You just have to not have consumer debt is probably the biggest one in my opinion. Not spend money on food or at the bars, and never ever get into credit cards. I'm sure if you're rich, they make sense, get your points, whatever. But Dave Ramsey does a big study and you spend 30% more if you use a credit card. It doesn't matter if you have the money to pay it off. Just on average, people are willing to spend more because they don't see it physically gone right away. So nonetheless, I would recommend house hacking, living with your roommates. And right away, this can be if you're getting out of high school, just move into a rental. I would recommend just one person being on the lease, personally. From a landlord standpoint now, that's probably not ideal, but from your standpoint, it's going to be a lot easier if you end up not getting along with a roommate or whatever. You can move people in and out that way. But get a place, get roommates, live cheap, don't go into debt, don't go out to eat, don't go to the bars, and just stack your cash for a couple of years. And then you could probably even skip the step of buying a primary residence like I did. But otherwise, rent for a year, save up the money for a down payment, get a single family 2 or 3 bedroom house, have roommates move in there, live in it for 2 years, sell it, you got your seed money plus all the money you made off from your roommates. And so yeah, that's what I'd recommend. That's mine and Caitlin's first lake house, and we miss it, but man, the investing is way better, so way better long game. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you guys next time. Get that cash flow.